morning. This morning I'm talking about the esoteric side of Christmas. Are you ready? The great sage, Master Moria, says that Jesus was born from a very poor family. When the hierarchy sent him to the world, notice that Jesus was sent by the hierarchy. He knew he was coming, but when he entered into babyhood, he needed protection. Also financial protection. So they brought expensive jewels and myrrh and incenses, which were very expensive at that time. And his mother used these jewels and treasures to support him. And then his father passed away. Jesus was 13 years old when Joseph passed away, so he remained alone with his mother. His mother did not work. It was a very critical time in the East to lose your husband. Your relatives would come and bring a few things to help you live. So the hierarchy wanted to support him. And that is why Jesus went from here to there, all over the world, without having to worry about money. The hierarchy supplied all these things to him through those three kings. The three kings were great initiates. Before, all the kings and rulers of the world there were great initiates and disciples, such as King Akbar and King Solomon. Of the three kings, one was Abyssinian, another was from Persia, and the third one was the son of an Arab king living in Petra. These great initiates and disciples took these offices to lead humanity into more education and culture. If you read about these great kings, you will see that they were representative of beauty, of truth, and of goodness. Most of them, especially in the early Egyptian dynasties. And typically, when their time was over, degeneration came. But at that time, they not only protected with financial support, they also told him and warned him of the many, many dangers that would befall him in his life. We know from the Bible that Herod killed many, many children, thinking he has also killed Jesus. Every time a great Son of God comes into the world, the Black Lodges prepare their anti-initiates. It's a very interesting statement, isn't it? Yeah, anti-initiates. If you read the comparative religions, you will see that hundreds of great ones like Jesus were born at the exact time of the winter solstice, which is tomorrow. Then, if you read a little deeper, you will see that there is a great truth in the words of the great Hermes, who said, "As above, so below." When the right astrological time comes, a ceremonial drama is carried on in the heavens, and just a shadow is carried out on the earth. Actually, the whole cosmos is one great mechanism, and each part corresponds to the other part. They help each other. They are related to each other. They are related in such a way that they explain each other, and through this whole drama, a great revelation is going on. The revelation is this: the spark in every person must be born. And heaven and earth are working together to fulfill this greatest miracle, which is the birth of the inner Christ. In the New Testament, the inner glory is recognized as the inner Christ, or the spark, or the inner sun. Now, 14 centuries before Christ, there was an Egyptian king. And this king made a sign of the sun and gave wings to it and put the hands under the sun and said that this sun is within each person. This is 14 centuries before Christ. So this sun must be born through us. Until it is born within each person, or that person, the person is not yet born, because the real person is the sun. The real person is the monad, not the soul, not the personality. That is why at Christmas we must emphasize that we are not yet born. We must be born. Last Sunday, when I talked about the winter solstice and the spiritual seeker, I said that the time of the winter solstice is the time to be born anew. And I gave some exercises for those who wanted to experience them. Now, our mind, our physical nature is here. We have a little touch with our soul, but that inner spark, which is the sun, is not born yet. And if that spark is not born, well, then who is born? This is a really good question to think about, to contemplate. And I know some of you will be having a reaction, particularly in our webinars. But if you really think about it and you're humble and you're willing to face yourself, you really want to ask yourself, am I born? Is that spark awake? Am I aware of the greatness of the purpose of life? Am I aware of what's going on in the other worlds? Am I in contact with the Master? Am I aware of our nightly meetings and gatherings, sometime between 10 and 4? And when I wake up in the morning, do I have a complete recollection of what I learned? If you can say yes to all these things, then yes, you're born. But we have a shell. And in the form of a physical, emotional, and mental body, that is the form. But the real person, the monad, the monad is not born yet. Christmas time means something different for those on the path. These days, people play a lot of Christmas music and send a lot of cards and tell each other, Merry Christmas! But it doesn't mean anything if they are not saluting each other with the birth of the sun. So year by year, at every Christmas, the inner spark slowly must come and reveal itself as your capital S self. Do you see? A shadow becomes a reality, then suddenly is appearing. For example, the Druids before Christ made a big temple, and this temple we called Stonehenge. And in the night of the 24th of December at midnight, they used to make a big bonfire. Then the strongest people would light their torches and run through all the villages, and give fire to the accumulated piles of wood. I was thinking back when I was attending the university, and at our homecoming, which was the most exciting game, we always had this huge bonfire. I mean, it was huge. It was taller than any of us. And that helped me then to go into Stonehenge, which I have been there. I've been to Stonehenge. And with that imagination, just imagine those strong people there running through the villages and the bonfire bursting so beautifully. I really suggest, if you've never been to Stonehenge, let that be on your bucket list. You know, it's a wonderful experience to be there. It's full of imagination and mystery and historical stories and so forth. But if you make contact with that energy, with the spirit of Stonehenge, it will touch something in you. And that something in you is going to reveal the real mystery of Stonehenge. It is so interesting if, for example, you read certain astrological material. Helena Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, and others say that on the 24th, early morning, or before midnight, a constellation starts to climb on the eastern horizon. And that constellation is Virgo. Look at the beauty. And when that constellation starts to climb, another big star appears on the meridian line, which is Sirius. And then the three kings appear, Orion. And then in the early morning, the sun comes out from the constellation of Virgo. So a virgin gave birth to a son, and she remained a virgin. This is the cosmic happening. The Virgo sign is giving birth to the sun, the light giver. And the star of the east is there. And the three kings are there also to salute. And something else. If you look at the constellation of Virgo, in the hand of that constellation, there is a stalk of wheat. That is Spica, one of the shining stars. Spica means also the house of bread, which is Bethlehem. Look how these things are connected to each other, as in heaven, so on earth. Astrologers of Chaldea and Palestine and Persia saw the greatest or the darkest days of the year, which is, of course, the winter solstice and today and Tuesday and Wednesday. I guarantee you, you know, the darkest days of winter. After that sun is born, but it is so weak, like a baby. In the Bhagavad Gita it says, when the light is becoming very dim from cycle to cycle, I am born to bring new light, intelligence to the world. This means that there are great cycles in the stars, and when they form real movement, a great event happens on earth. The hierarchy wanted also to make this great mystery a real fact for human beings, and so they started the mysteries of initiation. Actually, the initiations were nothing else but the technique, the process of how to bring this great sun into birth in the human being himself. They called these initiations by different names. The first one was called the birth of Bethlehem. Now that is Christian terminology. In other places it is called other names. But because the masters, the hierarchy, knew about this great happening, this great event, they thought they must go all over the world and form temples and teach this mystery everywhere. That is why it is everywhere, with Mayans, Aztecs, and India and Persia. Do you see how it is all connected? Everywhere you can find the teaching on the birth of some supernatural light. The hierarchy wanted to do this. So, for example, on the 24th, they wanted all people, instead of drinking and dancing and becoming drunk or making this or that, to be very cautious and pass that night in extreme prayer and holiness and such kind of endeavors. They wanted us to be ignited with aspiration and great dedication, to be born because that day is the day that a great event happened and can repeat itself within each of us, within you and within me. We must see that great picture, the spark coming like an echo, fading and fading. See? And at last it is lost in the mineral kingdom. But the little spark in the mineral kingdom starts to feed the vegetable kingdom, and then the animal kingdom. This little spark is mostly lost in the human kingdom. In the other kingdoms completely, like the superhuman kingdom. But still the fire is burning. It says in the Bible, we see things now in a glass, darkly, but then face to face. You can see these things by increasing the light in each other. If you say, I only want my light, and I will not give you any, you cannot see. You must increase the light of the other person so that we achieve our goal. This is so powerful. This is so powerful. I cannot emphasize it enough. The reason being, when the ego marries vanity, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that person thinks it is the spark within, the Christ within, that is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But it is not. It is pure illusion. When ego and vanity marry, it is actually the process of degeneration of that light of your soul. So when you walk around thinking, all puffed up, I'm better than you, I'm bigger than you, I'm richer than you, my empire is who I am, and you must bow down at my empire. You see? That's the marriage of ego and vanity. The three kings did not visit this little babe because of ego and vanity. It was the marriage of above so below, and was there to take care of him and to warn him. So this is what we are going to strive to do, to increase the light in each other so that we have more light. This is the birth of the great plan. If all of us are born anew, we'll have to have a bigger sanctuary. There won't be room for people to come in. If all of us are born anew, then we will see the great revelation, or we will understand the great revelation. Your light is born. You are a monad. Then you are an illuminated being. But if you are alone, the revelation is not complete. It is only complete when the group has that light. So when you repulse people from the group and say, come to me, they're in the process of decay. When a group has that light, then the dark planet is being formed into a shining light, and we become a sacred planet. Master Moria says, "My warriors, guard yourselves with the shield of God's will, and the divine song will ever find echo within thee." Before the deluge, when men were wedding and feasting and bargaining, Noah was already selecting the most stalwart oaks for his ark. What I am saying here this morning is to enter into a more glorious livingness. As Christ said, live life more abundantly. But live a very harmonious life. Not cheating, not manipulation, not exploiting, not hurting. These kinds of lives must be left behind. If you cannot see it yet, it just means the day will come when you see it. So what does this mean to us? It means to stop pretending to be somebody we are not, somebody you are not, that we must be real. It is not easy to be real because there is so much buried in one's subconscious nature. Many, many lifetimes of delusions and illusions, Maya and glamours. Of course, there are some good things there too, but mostly buried because of all the debris which controls the personality life. To live life more abundantly means to be real. To live the life of illumination. To be born anew. Oh, there's so much I'd like to share, and we are so out of time this morning. But take the words, really contemplate on the significance, of Christmas and winter solstice and your own life. The disciple is unique and not an average person. If you want to be an average person, to be at their level, to live the pretend life, then you are not a disciple. A disciple is a person from the peaks, not from the valleys. He or she is an elevation, a height, if you will, in every touch, in every relationship. The disciple must demonstrate light, love, and power. And let me add unity. See, you cannot demonstrate light, love, and power and be separative. See, are you getting my point? If you're going to demonstrate light, illumination, love, which is unity, power, which is spirit, then that is the whole principle of unanimity. See? Unity. It's the opposite of separatism. If we do these things, then we are really approaching our time of birth. And one day we will be born as a Savior on the 24th of December. This is a cosmic mystery. So I suggest during this week to meditate on MM's words. My warriors, guard yourselves with the shield of God's will, and the divine song will ever find echo within thee. Before the deluge, when men were wedding and feasting and bargaining, Noah was already selecting the most stalwart oaks for his ark. The ark is the lotus or the chalice. Merry Christmas.